There's sort of a standard practice when it comes to movie trailers, right? The whole, in a world where, that trope. And of course, movie trailers don't have to be voiced by that one guy and be so epic sounding, but that's what really comes to mind for me when I think of movie trailers. What about you? What do you think of when you think of movie trailers? Take a second to think about it.
Well, throw it all out the window for podcast trailers.
This episode is brought to us by Vocaster from Focusrite, Recast Studios, OSHA, and AugX Labs. These products and services make the show possible. Stick around after the show for an exclusive offer from our sponsors just for our listeners. You might even win a Vocaster audio interface. We're giving one away every episode of Season 1 of the show.
Hi, I'm Tim Villegas.
And I'm Arielle Nissenblatt.
And this is the Trailer Park Podcast.
On this show, we bring you trailers for podcasts that we think you should explore. Sometimes these trailers are for the audio that kicked off many epic seasons of a beloved podcast.
Sometimes the trailers we'll showcase were just made for fun or creativity's sake.
Sometimes these trailers were made for projects that are looking for funding.
And sometimes they're somewhere in between all of that.
Welcome to the first episode of the Trailer Park. We made it.
Woo!
The cool thing about podcast trailers, like podcasting in general, is that there really are no rules. There's no network standards that need to be adhered to in order for a trailer to be aired. So podcasters can get really creative with it.
Sure, there are best practices, and on this show, we'll not only play trailers for you, but also discuss a bit about what we liked and maybe disliked about some of the audio we share.
Let's introduce today's trailer. What should listeners expect, Tim?
What's great about this trailer is that you know exactly what you're getting. There's no guesswork, no extra homework yet you have to do. You're either interested in the subject matter or you're not.
Right. But either way, you're going to learn something. This trailer comes to us from Jessica Kidwell, and it comes in at 3 minutes and 1 second. That is if you're listening on regular speed. Shout out to the folks who are listening on 1.7 speed.
That's fast. That's too fast, Arielle. The show is called Neuroversity. Let's hit play on that trailer. We'll be back when it wraps to chat a bit about it.
Hi, I'm Jessica Kidwell, and this is Neuroversity, a weekly podcast focused on expanding our knowledge and understanding of the diverse ways humans can think, communicate, love, live, work, and learn. Neurodiversity is a fairly new word coined in 1998 by sociologist Judy Singer, and it seems to be popping up everywhere. Big business is heralding its importance in hiring and development of employees. Education is looking at ways to include different learning styles in a way that's more inclusive and less isolating. It's finding its way into acceptance speeches at award shows, and social media is full of #neurodiversity. And yes, there are even podcasts solely focused on neurodiversity. And this podcast, Neuroversity, aims to be another source for information and support for all members of this community. So what can you expect from this podcast? Well, this is a conversational style format where I will interview a wide variety of people who are in the neurodivergent community, whether it is first-person experiences, academic or research-focused, or places and organizations that provide support and tools. I want to talk to them. Neuroversity is dedicated to providing a space to educate ourselves and others about what neurodiversity is, elevate the experiences of the neurodivergent, be a source of support for members and allies of this community, and help move our culture towards valuing and including diverse neurological conditions, because systems cannot change until education and understanding take place. Listen, different people think differently, not just because of differences in where they were born or how they were raised or the life experiences they have, but because their brains are wired to work differently. 1 in 5 people have some form of neurodivergence, which can include autism, sensory processing disorder, ADHD, Tourette syndrome, dyslexia, dyspraxia, dyscalculia, a combination of many of those, and also conditions I haven't even named. This is a space where questions are welcomed and encouraged, and honoring individual experiences is the #1 rule. This is not a space for cures or fixes, because there is no fix to somebody who's different. There's just understanding and acceptance. And I am certainly no expert and have lived my entire life with a neurotypical label. But I'm also a mom of an autistic daughter and a neurotypical son, and I want to do the work to broaden my understanding of the infinite variations the human brain can function. And I'd love for you to come along. It's time to enroll in Neuroversity.
Thank you to Jessica Kidwell for sending in the trailer for Neuroversity. Tim, what are your immediate thoughts?
This is actually a subject that's really important to me, so I was super engaged. The trailer was set up very nicely with an intro, an easy call to action, and I loved how the music stopped at the end for a dramatic pause.
Yeah, I really liked it too. I also learned something new, which is that the term neurodiversity was coined in 1998. I think I just thought that term always existed.
I know. It wasn't until I really got podcasting in MySpace, about 10 years ago, that I realized that it had been around for that long. So
tell us, what is your space, Tim? We don't know this about you.
MySpace. So
MySpace.
I'm the founder of Think Inclusive, the official podcast of the Maryland Coalition for Inclusive Education. I've been doing the podcast for about 10 years. I started it when I was a teacher, and I get to interview really interesting people, kind of like what Jessica does, and interview neurodivergent people and people interested in inclusion.
I'm sure we're going to learn more about each other, and the listeners will get a peek into our lives throughout this season and this show. We also had a chance to chat briefly with Jessica about the trailer and the show. Here's what she said when we asked her about her decision to share the origin of the term neurodiversity.
The biggest hurdle I face to getting Neuroversity into the ears it needs to be in is that so many people think neurodiversity doesn't apply to them. And yet it's literally the most expansive and inclusive term on this planet other than, the term human. It is a big, giant umbrella that everyone falls under, but it's a fairly new term, and it has become a buzzword within the diversity and equity circles, which is great. But it can also turn people immediately off. So my hope for Neuroversity is to serve as a gathering place for people already curious about neurodiversity because they want to learn more about their child or spouse, their loved one, their friend, their coworker, or even themselves. But also that Neuroversity finds its way into the ears of people who didn't even know that they should be curious.
If you're interested in listening to Jessica Kidwell's Neuroversity, you can find it by going to neuroversitypod.com. That's NeuroVersity pod.com.
Here's a sneak peek of some of the episode titles. We've got What is Neurodivergent Masking, ADHD Awareness Month, Sensory Processing Disorder, and more.
If any of those titles are intriguing to you, head on over to neuroversitypod.com.
And if this episode of the Trailer Park Podcast was intriguing to you, we'd love to hear from you. You can leave us a rating and brief review on Apple Podcasts.
If you're listening on Spotify, did you know that you can leave a star rating?
I did, Arielle. If you're listening elsewhere and can't figure out how to leave a review, no problem. You can email us, if that's your jam, at hello@trailerparkpod.com.
I'll be waiting by my inbox. And since we work in podcasting, we're hyper aware of all the podcast cliches, so we won't be doing this whole appeal to ask you for ratings and reviews on every episode, just a few of them. But know that we would really love to hear from you, and you can get your rating and review out of the way right now.
If you're a podcaster and you want to be featured on our show, head to trailerparkpodcast.crd.co to submit your trailer.
All of the links we've mentioned on this episode will be listed in the show notes. We don't expect you to have all of this memorized, I promise. But if you did memorize it, I would be very impressed.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's trailer. This is season 1 of the Trailer Park Podcast. This season will consist of 8 trailer-filled episodes and some bonus content. We'll be back in your feeds next week with more. Oh, hey, you're still here. That's good, because we've got some exclusive sponsor offers.
As we mentioned at the top of the show, this show is sponsored by a bunch of amazing products and services that are perfect for creators.
First up is OSHA, our podcast hosting site. We love it. It's extremely easy to use and even sets you up with a built-in newsletter so you can reach your audience.
Recast Studios is helping us make video content for our show. We're going to be testing out posting some things on YouTube, TikTok, and Reels. And Recast makes it very easy to upload our video recordings or even just our audio to create audiograms.
OGX Labs is also helping us with video content, but they're doing it with AI. We upload our audio and it generates images using AI to create engaging visual content.
And Vocaster from Focusrite is our audio interface. Tim has one over in Atlanta, and I've got one in NYC. It's what makes the show sound so great. If you're a creator looking to up your audio quality, I highly recommend getting a Vocaster. For this episode, all you have to do to win is click on the link in the show notes. It'll take you to a submission form specifically for this episode. And hey, if you don't win this time around, there's always next week.
Thanks to all our sponsors.
This show is written by Arielle Nissenblatt and Tim Villegas. We are also your hosts.
It's mixed and designed by Tim Villegas.
Our art is by Caio Slikta.
Thanks for listening.
Happy trails!
Happy trails!
It's okay, actually, if it's like kind of off. I think it's cute.